Namaste, everyone.
Namaste, ma'am.
Namaste. I hope you all are having a great day. We'll just wait for another 2 minutes and then we'll start.
Namaste, everyone. Namaste, ma'am.
Namaste.
I hope you all are having a great day.
All right. So, uh, Namaste, everyone. This is Akriti and I am from India House. So, before we start the session on generalist versus specialist, I'll give a quick round of introduction to me and as well as my team. So, this webinar is on generalist versus specialist. It's morely about how you can know and how you can navigate your path where which specialization belongs to you the more. So, to start with, I would like to introduce the speakers for today's discussion. Today, we are joined by Kumar Shubhamji and Nachiketa ji. Firstly, I would start with the introduction of Kumar Shubhamji. Kumar Shubhamji is the founder and CEO of India House, an initiative focused on building the next generation of leaders in public policy and governance. He is the alumnus of IIT Delhi and brings over a decade of experience in the field of public policy. He has been instrumental in building platforms like Rashram School of Public Leadership, working at the intersection of leadership, policy, and grassroots impact. At India House, he's working to nurture young individuals into thoughtful policy professionals and change makers. Next, I would like to introduce Nachiketa ji. Nachiketa ji is leading learning and development at India House and is a policy professional with an engineering background from IIT Delhi. She has previously worked with organizations like ExxonMobil and Bain and Company and has also contributed to Governments of India One District One Product initiative. Her experience including working closely with senior bureaucrats and policymakers, bringing both strategic insights and ground level understanding. Please join me in welcoming session experts. Next slide. Now, before we begin, just a few quick housekeeping rules for everyone. I request everyone who have joined the call, please rename yourself using your actual names instead of the device names so that we can take your queries directly by your name. Secondly, if you have any questions at any point, just drop them in the chat. You don't have to hesitate. You just simply have to highlight your questions in the chat. From our team will be taking a quick round of note, whoever is having any questions. In case if we miss anything, we'll have a quick round of Q&A by the end of the session. So without any further ado, I would introduce Kumar Shubhamji to take over from here.
Thank you, Akriti. It's a pleasure to welcome you all here. And it's a Sunday afternoon. I'm glad around 50 of us are here, some on the Zoom, some on the YouTube Live. And today's discussion is a 2 hour discussion. And this conversation is a lifelong conversation. Uh, I'm sure when people at the highest level of the government meet, they also debate this. Just a few days ago, 3 days ago, we were sitting with a secretary in Government of India, and he was asking the same question. I understand this is not a question that we can do complete justice to in 2 hours. However, we do realize that a conversation of this stature, of this relevance, needs to begin sometime. And today we are just offering our 2 cents on this conversation, primarily because it's just a longer conversation and it's better to start early. We are joined by some of us who have gone through this section in their own heads. We are also joined by some of us who have engaged with the system good for some time to understand this difference. So today we are going to do 3 things. Number one, we are going to help you understand what does the difference between these two mean. when it means working in public policy. Number two, in between these roles, what are the various career paths that are available in public policy? And number three, while we see all of this together in tandem, uh, what does it mean for us? What can I do right now to know this, which side of the discussion I would be in, and how to navigate this forward? These are the broadly three things that we are going to cover. And for that, I have my wonderful colleague Nachiketa, who also leads learning and development at India House, to take this forward. Meanwhile, before we all start debating on and discussing on this, I would request any one of us who has any question around this. This may be a meta question, this may be a micro question. Some questions you'd be comfortable writing in the group meeting chat. Some questions, if you want to specifically send to either Nachiketa or me on the chat, feel free to do that. We would be happy to respond to all questions. So today, in the next 1.5, 2 hours, when we end this conversation, we would be answering 100% of the questions that have come in on the chat, either orally or in the written form. This is true for the Zoom. This is true for the YouTube Live. At any place, wherever you are watching in, do tell us what goes on in your head when it comes to the idea of building a journey in public policy, and we would be happy to respond. And with that note, passing it on to Nachiketa to take this forward.
Thank you, Shubhamji. As you mentioned that it's may not be always easy to do justice with this topic in just 2 hours, and this is also a topic that most of us has gone through or has struggled with one time or the another in our lives. So yes, we would try to answer some of the questions that come to our mind, some of the dilemmas and some of the guilts at times that come to our mind. Should I go deep in one domain and become a specialist, or should I build a broader perspective or understanding across the domains and become a generalist? So we'll see. We'll peel the layers of this particular debate in the next 2 hours, and would love to know your thoughts also on the way. Before we begin, would like to get a quick pulse check of the people we have with us. So I would request my colleague to please show the poll to us, and I would like to know your thoughts on where are you in your journey of public policy. Pratibhaji, can we have the poll, please?
The poll is live on your screen. We can see already around 20% of us have already participated. We'll wait for another 30 seconds to see all of us participating. We have almost 40% of the people who have polled. Now 50% of people have polled. And you still have a lot of people who are left to poll. Around 60% have polled right now, and in the next 10 seconds, we will close the poll. We have approximately 65% of us already put in their votes. The question is, where are you in your journey of public policy? Some of us might be unaware, some of us might be just exploring, some of us might be entering, some of us might be navigating, they're already inside. Some of us must just be repositioning, and some of us is about integrating. We already have 70% of the people polled. Last 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here are the poll results for all of us to see.
So yes, quite interesting. So we have people from across the spectrum joining us. There are a lot of people who are curious to understand some of the options in the public policy space. There are people who have either entered the policy space or wanting to enter into the policy space and figuring out their own paths in the policy space. Now, before we actually start, I think one question that comes to my mind is...
Just a minute, Nachiketa ji. Just a quick check with everybody. Can you all see the poll results? No. There's some issue sharing the poll result. I hope you can see it now. For those who are unable to see it and those who are on YouTube Live, around 30% of us are in the exploring stage, around 25% of us are in the entering stage, 15% of us are in the navigating phase, 8% are repositioning phase, around 25% are in integrating phase. This was a single choice answer. So all of us are in one phase or the other. And the majority of us are either just exploring or entering, and a significant chunk is also repositioning and integrating. So we have almost like a bimodal curve right now, where a lot of people are in the entry path and a lot of people are in the path where they are repositioning themselves within the public policy space. That's a great place to be in. Back to you, Nachiketa ji.
We can stop sharing the poll maybe, Pratibha ji. I'll just.
Yes. Done.
Okay. Uh, so one the basic question that comes to us when we start this discussion is, why does this dilemma even exist? And is this dilemma that exists just with you, or is it with everyone? So we'll just try to see, why does this dilemma exist? I would like you to take 30 seconds of your time and write somewhere, why do you think this dilemma actually exists?
And just to add to what Nachiketa ji mentioned, this dilemma is about whether I be a generalist in public policy or whether I be a specialist in public policy. And this is not just public policy. Generalist and specialist debate is true for all domains. However, this domain is much wide. This debate is much wider just by the breadth of what public policy offers. And with that breadth in mind, we sometimes face this dilemma. And let's just write that down as Nachiketa ji requested us all to.
And if you want, you can also mention it on the chat, and we would be happy to read. Okay, somebody has mentioned that there are a lot of opportunities in public policy space, and that's why we often get this question. Great, Keshavji. I would love to hear more of such responses. Uh, okay, the dilemma exists. Wasimji has mentioned that the dilemma exists in between policy formation and the policy execution. Okay, I hope you have written it somewhere, either in your notebook or in your heads or on your laptops. And let's see, why does this dilemma exist? Have you ever heard these voices in your head? I've always been told to be good at something, I need to specialize. But what does specialize even mean in public policy? Policy feels so broad. Should I try to understand everything or pick one domain early in my career? In fields like tech or finance, specialization is quite clear. There are clear pathways. But in policy, how do you even define a domain? People say generalists don't go deep enough, and people say specialists become too narrow in their approach. So, what is true? So I hope, just like me, most of us have had these voices in their head, and we are always either in dilemma or sometimes in guilt. Have I made the right choice or not? So yes. Now look at these pictures in front of you. See, when you look at Gandhiji, he was not known for any specialization, but he was known for bringing people together, for having movements that are still remembered in the history of India. So we might feel, okay, the generalization is something that's most important. Now look at Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He was specialized in law and economics, and it was just because of his specialization in one particular domain and his understanding that we could get our constitution today. Similarly, if you see Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, he was specialized in aerospace. But later on in the life, he also took a position that was more of a generalist position. So we can probably say that, roles over the period evolve. And we have in front of us our role models in today's context, uh, Amitabh Kanji and Nandan Nilekani ji. So what would you say? Are they generalists or are they specialists? There will always be a debate, right, about the generalist or specialist. But what we can see at the end of it, that probably policy values both. a generalist as well as a specialist. So let's just see, what does a generalist or a specialist mean in the public policy domain? And the question that we asked, why does this dilemma exist? And all the answers that I have got on the chat also resonate, that we have so many options, we have so many paths within public policy itself. And we have role models in front of us who have been generalists, who have been specialists, and both have created a huge value in this public policy domain and at large in the nation building. So let's just see, what is our own swabhava, before even going into the depth of who is a generalist and a specialist. A quick self assessment to understand our own swabhava as we move ahead. It will help us to become, it will become an anchor as we move ahead with the session. So I would like Pratibha ji to have one of the polls again. So you have 4 questions in front of you.
Question number 1. I am comfortable operating with broad knowledge from many fields, or I prefer building expertise in one. We may choose any one of them. Number 2. I enjoy variety and switching contexts, or some of us enjoy the long sustained focus on the same problem over many years. Some of us get more energy from exploring many topics. Some of us gain more energy by going deep. Some of us want to influence the big picture strategy. Some people want to go deep to solve a domain's complex problems. You see, in each question, there is a dilemma. The question between, do I prefer to be the jack of all trades or be the master of one? The dilemma exists between enjoying variety or enjoying focus. The dilemma exists between what gives you energy. The energy comes from the range of things. The energy comes from mastering of one's theme. And the question comes from that, do I enjoy playing in the big picture, seeing things from 1,000 feet away and seeing the entire picture? Or some of us enjoy building a meaningful thing in a small domain, and that domain later influencing everything else. After all, does not depend where you see it from, where you make the impact matters. And these are 4 very, very broad questions that help us look through this entire idea. And we already have 15% of us already voted through, and we'll just 50% of us already waited through, and we'll just wait for 10 more seconds to see what do this group, the group which is present here, around 55 of us, mean. For people who are on YouTube live and unable to see these options, I will read it again to you. Question number 1. Option A and option B. Option A, I'm comfortable operating with broad knowledge from many fields versus I prefer building expertise in one. Question number 2, I enjoy variety and switching contexts. Option B, I enjoy long and sustained focus. Question number 3, I get more energy from exploring many topics versus I get more energy by going deep and mastering one. And question number 4, I want to influence big picture strategy across sectors. And I want to go deep and solve a domain's complex problems. And this is where the 4 problems, and around 70% of us have already participated. So I will end the poll now. And here are the results on your screen. As you can see, a lot of us, there is a small majority, a very minor majority that currently is more biased towards operating from a generalist perspective. And there is a group of people who want to do sustained work, and this is almost equal in number. If you look at question number 2 or question number 3 or question number 4, question number 4 is exactly equal. And the rest of the questions also, there is a very small difference between the 2 categories. What does this tell us, Nachiketa ji? What does this tell about the group? What does this tell about this domain?
Right. So I would just ask everyone to just be with your answers for next 20 minutes. We'll go through what does a generalist or specialist mean in the public policy domain, and we'll probably again come back to this poll, and you can reflect back again on which category do you fall. And according to your own swabhava, according to the experience that you have had, according to what kind of goals and what kind of value do you want to create in the society, both these options are available and open. However, we do have a choice at the end of it to either become a generalist or a specialist. Now let's see, what does a generalist and a specialist mean in the public policy domain. So, when we talk about the specialist, a specialist is someone who has expertise in one particular domain, be it health, be it technology, be it trade, be it education, uh, be it sustainability, etc. So, they have expertise in one particular domain, and it may not be limited to that chosen area, but they try to go deeper in that particular domain and spend more number of years and more energy reading and working in that domain. So, in terms of knowledge, a generalist is someone who understands the multiple policy domain, who has to understand the governance systems across different domains. He might have to, understand how does the governance work in health, how does the governance work in education, etc. So, a generalist has to take care of a broader understanding of policy domains, and also a broader understanding of uh, the expert domains as well, rather than going into a depth of a particular domain. In terms of skills, a specialist is someone who has the technical skills, the domain specific skills, and the advanced data analysis in that field. That specialist knows if someone is in, say, sustainability, that person knows what are the different talks that are going on, what is meant by carbon credits, what is meant by different terminologies in that particular domain. So if that person is able to comprehend the bigger picture in that particular domain. However, a generalist is someone who focuses more on the stakeholder management, bringing the stakeholders together, bringing the people together, the project management, and works cross domain in the policy analysis as well. So these are some of the skills that a specialist and a generalist focus on. In terms of impact style, a specialist tries to create a depth, long-term systemic impact within one particular sector. Uh, so let's take for example someone who is a medical doctor and also became a bureaucrat later on. That person would want to be in health domain for a longer period of time. Because of that person's expertise, he'll be able to contribute more in that particular domain. So they want generally to specialize and also impact in that particular domain. However, the impact that a generalist create is across the sectors. They are mainly responsible for bringing a lot of stakeholders together. For example, we can take the example of Mr. Amitabh Kant. The role that he played in G20 was a generalist role, but he was the master of bringing countries on the same page in a lot of matter. And yes, that's what and he was able to create a huge impact. uh, Similarly, when we look at what are they best for, so a specialist enjoys reading one topic. He or she has a lot of patience. He or she wants to gain an authority on one particular topic. They want to be the one seen in round tables, in the panel discussions, sitting at the top in that particular domain. However, a generalist is someone who enjoys variety. He or she cannot bind oneself in one particular domain and wants to just break through that domain knowledge and wants to work across the across the various domains and wants to work on the public solving aspect broadly. So yes, these are some of the differences between a specialist and a generalist in terms of their knowledge, skills, impact style, and what are they best suited for. So basis this, and also basis our understanding and our interaction with hundreds of people in the policy domain, we have categorized these people in three particular areas, uh, and these are public policy specialist, public policy generalist, non-policy people in the policy role, and policy people in the non-policy ecosystem. So, for example, if you're not able to get the third one, this is mainly people who are coming from, say, engineering or a consulting background and joining some government or allied organization. So they are mainly from a non-policy background but joining a policy organization. And similarly, they are in the non-policy ecosystem, maybe some consulting firms or some companies who have their vertical in the policy domain, for example the government affairs. So a lot of people who have expertise in policy, they join the non-policy ecosystem to create an impact from the outside. So right, so these are there are three kinds of people that we have identified, and we have divided them in the four dimensions. One is the knowledge base, another is the technical and cognitive skills, third is the mindset, and fourth is best fit if you are. So, in terms of knowledge base, a public policy specialist, he has a very good understanding of subject matter. He has the understanding of governance architecture of that particular domain. Say if, for example, you have expertise in electronics, you are working in METI, so you would know what is the role of METI, what is the role of TRAI, and how does the whole governance structure works in that particular domain. They have the technical and scientific underpinnings in terms of that particular domain. um, Similarly, a generalist, what does so a generalist has broader role. He has more responsibilities on his head. He has to know the governance architecture across different domains because he has to bring people together. He has to understand the broader perspective, and he also has to know the current trends across the domains. Similarly, in the non-policy and non-policy in policy ecosystem and policy role in non-policy ecosystem, they are mainly responsible for execution and implementation part. So, for example, they need to know what are the relevant policies and regulations in the domain that they are working in. For example, if you are working in some healthcare company, so you need to know what are the rules and regulations in the healthcare. What you also need to have the domain knowledge of the healthcare. So these people are more at the intersection of a generalist as well as a specialist in terms of knowledge base.
Yes. Just to add to what Nachiketa ji mentioned, it's important to realize that there are context switches. For example, when I go to a ministry and I talk about public systems, I become a specialist. My role of going to a ministry and needing to engage with multiple stakeholders makes me also a generalist. These are not rigid boundaries, but there are also boundaries to be made. The objective is not to segregate, but to understand this differentiation. To have a quick example, a subject matter specialist, for example, we have Amraja with call on the call with us today. She works on sustainability, so she understands sustainability a lot. She has expertise in the area of sustainability. She might or might not be accompanied by somebody in order to make an impact who can be a generalist and understands the governance architecture. Or, for example, Sanket ji is on the call as well. Sanket ji is a great person who understands the tech domain very well. In the tech domain, he could understand the risks and opportunities very well. However, he needs to have somebody or in his own head or somebody external to the head. Either he needs to develop the skill set himself, or somebody else needs to develop the skill set for him, to accompany him, to complement him, who can provide the necessary trade-offs of an idea that Sanketji wants to push on for the government for any policy change. That's where both of them come together. When you go deeper into one domain, it becomes a specialist role because there is subject domain expertise. Without a subject, you can still work a lot on the architecture of the governance itself. Anything mentioned in the column number 2, which is public policy generalist, is about everything in the world. It's a good horizontal line. The public policy specialist role is a good vertical line. You go into depths of a domain. When you work on a non-policy role in a policy ecosystem, or you work on a policy role in a non-policy ecosystem, let's say you are manager for events in a policy think tank. That's the column number 3. Or let's say you are the policy head for a private entity. So you are a policy role in a non-policy ecosystem. The first one is a non-policy role in a policy ecosystem. Both of them will at some places be a bit of specialist and a bit of generalist as well. And that's what the third column is about. Back to you, Nachiketa.
Thank you, Shubhamji. Yes, so you're right. So we were just on the knowledge-based part. We mentioned that, in terms of knowledge, there's governance architecture, and then there is domain knowledge. Generally, the specialists focus on domain knowledge, and they do have a broader understanding of governance architecture. However, generalist focuses on the governance architecture more. Who has more power? Who has more interest? Who is the right person to approach, etc. So they also need to know the current trends across the domain so that they can pitch the right things at the right time at the right place. So that's the role of generalist. In terms of technical and cognitive skills, this is a very common, but a specialist has the analysis and research skills in one particular domain. They know how to how to analyze a particular policy, if it has to move from, say, policy 1.0 to policy 2.0, how to anticipate risks and opportunities in a particular domain. However, in terms of generalists, the technical role includes understanding the systems, having the systems thinking, having the lateral thinking, to be able to come up with alternatives to solve a problem, to be able to come up with trade-offs that are required to solve a particular problem. So that's the role of a generalist. In terms of non-policy slash policy role, strong operational and executional skills are required. So they need to know who are the right people in the government ecosystem and in their own company, who are the right stakeholders who can help the right policies uh, to come into place, and how can they translate the policy into what the business or their practice strategy wants. So those are the technical skills that are required across a specialist, generalist, and policy slash non-policy role. In terms of mindset, um, as you can fairly see, specialists would need to have more patience. Specialists would need to have more discipline. A specialist would need to have more network with the specialists across the whole country and the globally as well, so that they can interact with each other and create some specialized subject matter expertise in that particular domain. In terms of generalists, they need to be very quick learners. So most of the bureaucrats who are there, they are mostly generalists because they have to be very, very adaptable and very quick learner, because they are going through a lot of positions. They are having these transfers after one say after an year or two, so they have to be very, very adaptable to the new situations. In terms of the policy role in the non-policy ecosystem, the person has to be very persuasive. They have to see the right opportunity at the right place. They have to be like a doorkeeper in the government, so that they can see the right opportunity coming and tap it over whenever it is there.
If I
And yes.
quickly add on to what Nachiketa is trying to say, the last row is the most important row in all of this. Uh, you are a policy specialist. If you should aim for to become policy specialist, if you there is a clear passion for a cause. If you instead enjoy connecting dots, a generalist role would do better. If you believe that you have to be at the intersection of where organizations lie and where policy lies, you should be in the non-policy role in a policy ecosystem or a policy role in a non-policy ecosystem. But these are only the meta points. These are only directions. What is much more important than all of this is what are the some key attributes of anybody who wishes to work in policy. And that's where we come to defining the attributes of a policy pioneer. Here we have mentioned policy pioneer, but it's important to realize that by this pioneer, we do not mean people who only attended the program. This also means anybody who wishes to be a pioneer in public policy. India's policy ecosystem is currently just shaping up. It is in the nascent stages for any industry. Imagine you are in late 1980s and you are part of the IT revolution of India. The policy ecosystem is currently at that stage. The next 15-20 years are going to be crucial. Just like the last 5 years have created space for policy thinkers, their next space would be to create space for policy pioneers. And that's where we believe the next round of change will happen. Very basically, we have divided into three brackets: knowledge, skills, and mindset. For knowledge, you need basics of history of policy making. What are the policies and domain? What does the governance architecture look like? What is an Indic perspective on it? What are the current trends? Skills, there are some technical and some cognitive skills. You need to know basics of policy research. Everybody needs to know basics of policy research. This includes both primary and secondary, as well as policy core idea of understanding what is worthy of researching, being able to draw an hypothesis and be able to test it out, understanding core of data analysis, policy communication, systems thinking, and lateral thinking. And when it comes to mindset, core idea of I am here to serve, the core idea of self-management, the core idea of optimism, the core idea of courage, and externally being able to manage stakeholders and engage with a network. These are some key traits of anybody who wishes to work in policy. And this is what defines you as a policy leader. But how do these translate to domains? Currently, we are discussing two particular domains: trade policy and tech policy. And I'm sure a parallel can be drawn to any other domain in policy, any other subdomain of policy as well. How do you translate all of this discussion into that domain? And that's what I will ask Nachiketa ji, my colleague, to take over.
Right. So we saw what are the attributes and what are the traits of a policy pioneer. These are some of the examples that we have mentioned. That who are the employers in the trade as a domain. So a specialist can work. With, say, DGFT, the Ministry of Commerce, the Center for WTO Studies, the policy teams of consulting companies, trade and law firms. So these are some of the places where a specialist is needed. A generalist, they are needed for for more of a diplomacy and somebody who can see through who can see through different domains and bring people together. So we have Department of Commerce, we have PM office who has to coordinate with all the departments to bring the information in. I have myself worked at Invest India, and being a generalist, our role used to coordinate with the states, to coordinate with different ministries, to get the work done, to execute the work on the ground. Then there are industry associations like CII, FICCI, SHM, and then there are bodies like World Bank. World Bank has people who are specialists as well. However, people who are responsible for getting things done, or you're seeing FTAs being signed. So it requires a mix of specialist as well as a generalist to actually make this happen. And then there are policy roles in non-policy organizations. You all know there are companies who have a lot of trade, so they all have their policy teams who directly coordinate with the ministries to get their agenda, to get just most of the times for lobbying, and also to align their goals with the policy goals. So these are a few places in the trade ecosystem that you can probably look at if you are a specialist, generalist, or want a policy role in the non-policy organization. One quick poll again. Pratibhaji, if I may request you to put the poll. Yes, the poll is in front of you. The question is, if India is facing a WTO dispute on agricultural subsidies, what role do you want to play? You would like to build legal argument, you would like to negotiate with countries, you would like to coordinate across ministries, or you would like to analyze the subsidy data to support the arguments. We have strong competition going across all the responses. Another 20 seconds.
So if you see these options when they're available to you, this is a WTO dispute. This might happen between two countries or WTO and that country. All four happen almost in parallel. Somebody is coordinating with ministries in India and across the world. Somebody is negotiating with countries at the table, behind the table, track one diplomacy, track two diplomacy, all of that is happening. Somebody is ensuring that if court goes to a legal case, we are having a legal argument. Somebody is needs to analyze subsidy data both in India and abroad. All of those countries need to create it. You need to do it for your own and compare it with the world. They are all almost parallel tasks. And that's why also when the 72% people who have polled, the outcome also reveals. The outcome is, apart from you all, when you can see on the screen, 12% of you have mentioned that you want to build the legal argument. 23% mentioned that you want to negotiate with countries. 38% mentioned you want to coordinate with ministries. Around 27% mentioned that you want to analyze subsidy data. Now it's important to realize that all four require some bit of generalist and some bit of specialist. However, there is a deep domain expertise also needed. Yes, Nachiketa.
Right. Uh, yes. So if we, take another context where India is negotiating on FTA with the major economy, and Kumar, Shubhamji has already summarized that we need all the people in that particular team. We need a specialist who is analyzing different sector-specific impacts, who is analyzing how has the evolution of tariffs happened, and what position do we want to take on the tariff, and we would need to have someone to create a detailed negotiation briefs. What if they ask this to happen, what would happen? So there needs to be a lot of permutation combination that needs to happen on these negotiation briefs, and we need definitely a specialist for that. We also need a generalist who would manage the overall negotiation process, who would manage how to put your own thinking, your own side to the table, and have reached to a position which is win-win for all, aligning different positions across ministries, aligning different interests, and that's the role of a generalist. And also the people who are working in the policy role in non-policy organizations, they are also a part uh, of something called FTA. They bring the voices of different business associations who would be the final stakeholders, or who would be the final beneficiaries of this, of a particular FTA, to bring that on the table and lobby for some favorable terms across the industry. So we need all in any sort of role, in any sort of FTA, or any sort of project that we have either in the government or in the policy domain. So we need all of them. Just similar to trade, this is an example of technology. Since we are having another specialization, this time in policy pioneers in technology. So these are the few places where you can work in the public policy space if you are you are specialist in technology domain. These are MITI, Data Security Council of India, Center for Internet and Society, Carnegie, Takshila, Microsoft, Google. They have their policy team, cybersecurity audit firms, and a lot of other institutions as well who require the specialists. Then there are institutions who need to bring together a lot of stakeholders in this ecosystem. They conduct multi-stakeholder forums, for example, NASCOM, for example, Niti Aayog at times, national e-governance divisions, a lot of state IT departments. They need to bring together a lot of insights from across the domain to bring, to influence or bring a policy. Then there are the policy role in non-policy organizations. So every company which is either a tech company or have a tech product has their own policy team, so that they can lobby for themselves and they can keep an eye on the policies and rules and regulations that are coming in, and keep evolving as per rules and regulations, and also be able to influence those policies if they are not in the favor of their long-term goals. So yes, these are few areas where if you are in technology, either as a generalist, specialist, or working in non-policy organization, these are some of the areas you can work in. Another poll, please. So I'll read out the poll. India's data protection framework is being challenged by global tech companies and trade partners for being too restrictive. What role do you want to play? Design the legal and regulatory frameworks for the data protection, negotiate with global tech companies and foreign governments, coordinate across ministries for implementation, and analyze data flows, compliance costs, and economic impact.
And around 30% of us, 40% of us have already polled. We'll wait for another 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 60% of us already polled. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you have not submitted, just submit, and here are the results.
Very happy to see, we have people across the spectrum, and we have people interested in all of these things, and that's what is also needed in the policy. That, based on interest, if we can have our uh, interests aligned with what we are actually doing, we can do wonders in the public policy. So I'll just stop sharing this. Right. So we have heard about what's the role of a generalist and what's the role of a specialist in the policy. This has all been, a simulation uh, of our experiences, of our thoughts. Now I would like to know in person. We have some of our policy pioneers alumni with us, and they are working either as generalists or specialists in different, either in NGO or in policy domain, or with some corporates, etc. We would like to hear from them now. I would like to start with Amaraja ji. Can we hear from you? Amaraja ji.
Am I audible, Nachiketa ji?
Yes, you are on.
And we have
Okay.
Fabraj on the
Namaste.
screen. Can we please spotlight it?
Actually, Subham sir, I'm outside and there is a lot of background that's going on. So I would like to
Oh, sure.
not start
Sure.
my video at the moment.
Sure.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. The Sunday evening. When I started this discussion with India House team regarding the specialization and choosing of my field, I have a deep interest in sustainability, and I was little confused about whether I choose governance or sustainability. And I had this discussion with Shubham sir himself, and I wanted to see that I know. Not completely, but I know something about sustainability. Now I want to understand the how the governance frameworks work, how's the governance in policy domain has to be understood by the public policy enthusiast like me. Because when I wanted to implement some projects in sustainability, ultimately it ends up intersecting with governance domain, and wanted to understand whether I choose the governance domain as my study domain, or I stick to my sustainability domain. So when I realized after speaking with Shubham sir, and when I realized when once the course started, it was a good decision to stick to the sustainability, because then it deepened my understanding about it, and also I got to know the intersection points of governance domain as well. So what do I need to do if some project is stuck at ministry, or if some project needs to be communicated to a bureaucratic system, and then have to be get the tender, that complete process of tendering, and managing the entire process of the project. Then I understood that also. And in the governance also, there were some intersecting common lectures that we had during the entire course of 4 months. Uh, those made me realize that it's not the one that we choose. It's it's understanding one and probably trying to figure out where it can fit with others, and who are the subject matter expertise that can help us to drive through that particular intersection. So that's the key learning that I've got. And when I look at myself as well, when the polls were on, I messaged in one. So I think I can be a specialist and as well as generalist. And it will be that time and the project need that will trigger my shift between specialist and journalist. So that was some kind of realization of self a path that I was finding through this policy pioneer program, and still I'm figuring out which in which way I can contribute most to the country. Um, uh, that the people and the generations might be, I can be a little part player in the entire domain, uh, that can help bring some change um, during the next 5-10 years down the line maybe. So that's it. And the Policy Pioneer program and these 4 months have made me seriously think about the ethics, the Subhav, as Nachiketa ji was mentioning. Also, the level of things that we can contribute and have to adjust when we are committed to one particular goal. So I think that's from
Thank
my end.
Thank you,
Yes.
Amaradaji, for sharing what went in your mind when you had to choose between the two. You wanted to go in sustainability domain, but you wanted to have an experience of governance in that domain, and that's when you
Yes.
chose sustainability. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Amaradaji, for sharing. I would like to move to Karanveer for his thoughts on how did he choose.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Karanveer. I'm part of the first cohort, Policy Pioneers. And why did I choose governance? Is because I was looking for a way to create maximum impact there is. And in one of the sessions, Kumarji told us that governance is the sum total of all knowledge there is. So, in an attempt to make the maximum impact, I thought that governance is a stream that can do just like do do can justify the amount of impact that I want to create. Now, um, I just feel that uh, the the entire process that the policy finance program took us through uh, gave us an environment where we could unleash the most version we could unleash a version of ourselves that could create the maximum impact. So the policy finance program was was like that time where anybody who has passion inside them or the willingness to make change, they can come and they can channelize all their energy inside them into creating maximum impact that they can. So yes, that was my insight on why did I choose governance, impact, impact, and impact.
Thank you, Karanveer ji. Thanks for sharing. Gautam ji.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nachiketa ji and Kumar ji and the whole team of India House. I'm also the part of the first cohort of Policy Pioneers program. So this dilemma was very present to me because I'm someone who has done my bachelor's in economics and I'm doing my master's in public policy. So when you say one of my professors will be like, "Go, this is a research conference that you should go forward to," and consider that I have worked in the education field as of now at India House and within my certain other avenues, I look at it from a dilemma that I don't want to work for the finance or the trade factors of now because I specialize in education and that is something that interests me. So that is where the conflict between becoming a generalist or a specialist in my field comes in. But based on my previous experiences, I'll share a very short, brief personal account. In my junior KG class, I actually skipped nursery to enter school. And that's when the teacher told me that, Gautam, you won't be able to cope up, you will fail. You will fail in your exams. Just imagine a teacher in nursery telling you that you can't understand lines and shapes, and that is where you will fail in exams. Post forward to that, when I'm working on education, I see that a lot of class 5 children can't read a class 3 level text. That is a realization that hits me. Okay, I feel for this sector there is a certain social impact that I can create for that. So that's why I enrolled for education as a field, because I wanted to create a larger social impact, and that's how I specialize in this field. But no matter what you say, when we were also doing our hands-on project, we had to create a handbook, that is a collaboration handbook, which was very generalist in its working. So you might be in any sector per se, but the generalist aspect and the specialist aspect might come in. You also might see health, education, and other things intermingling, becoming each other, because it's a collaborative system in itself, the policy system. So I think whatever you choose, be it generalist or specialist, it is going to be a very great exposure for anyone who is enrolling for the Policy Pioneers program. So yeah.
Thank you, Gautam ji. I'll move to Sanket ji.
Yeah, good evening. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
So yeah, so my selection that depend totally on my background. So based on my experiences, so I been a tech person and energy and environment specialize in those areas and also in some of the development. So for me, when I really looking about a specialization selection for the policy pioneer course, I want to be always the sustainability, and the other part was there before education also, but as I was working as a professor earlier. So, but there were only one ministry for that. So I skipped that and focus more specifically into sustainability, because I can get more project based on my past experiences, background, and interact with the people. And when you talk about sustainability, the work culture depend on the various other ministries also. And then when you look about the governance and all these things, so when you work with these policies, governance will be overlap almost with everyone. So that was the focus I was looking, and somewhere we will be learning. But I'm not a core person in governance because I may not understand everything in the governance. So I focus specifically to sustainability, and wherever I going to get the opportunity to work with those people, I will learn more across those domains as such. So that was my focus, selecting about a sustainability and moving into this direction as such. So that is what I focused and continue with the policy pioneer course. So all the lectures, all the deliverable were very great from the various experts as such. And I'm in the process of talking to them, looking out for the more research work and those areas as such. Then talking about health, so I'm not a doctor in that the medical doctor as such. So it is ruled out for me as a health part of it. So I totally focus on based on my background specialization, and I have the path how to move ahead into governance later part and also into education as such. Yeah, that is all my clear path which I choose to go for policy pioneer sustainability. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sanket ji, Gautam ji, Karanveer ji. I think one thing was clear from all the experiences, that there is fluidity in the ecosystem. So you can move if you are specialist. You can definitely, given the situation, given the project, you can definitely build on the generalist skills and move towards that side. So there's a lot of fluidity in the system. And Sanket ji, thank you so much for also bringing this point of ruling out. So sometimes we rule out some of the options for us, which we feel that are not in tandem with our own swabhava or something that we want to do. So that's also one way of choosing something by ruling out other things. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I'll now move on to the Policy Pioneers program that we have. We'll hand over to Kumar Shubham ji to share about the program and what we have for all of you in this program.
Sure. Thank you, Nachiketa ji. Very quickly, and I know there will be questions coming in. So while we take the next 10 minutes into sharing about the Policy Pioneers program, I would also request all of you to please fill in your questions in the chat as well. There are comments by Amraja ji, I think Om Prakash ji, Shreyansh ji, somebody titled user. There are inputs coming in from Udayshri, Sanket, Wasim, Keshav that we can see. However, if there are any specific questions that you wish to ask about public policy as a domain, as a career, as a pathway for all of us to do more impactful work in life, feel free to put them on the chat. Coming back to Policy Pioneers, the Policy Pioneers is something that we built with a lot of effort. A lot of synthesis has gone into, and synthesis not just of a few people. Uh, Policy Pioneers so far has engaged at least somewhere around 200 to 250 experts in the domain who have contributed their bit to it. This contribution had come up in three parts. One, a set of people who joined in the focus group discussions with people who have done their masters and done executive education in public policy. People who have done a diploma in public policy from ISPP or General Global School or NLSIU, or people who have done their masters in tech policy or a specific domain, let's say from Columbia, Harvard, IITs, or IIMs. And set of people who have done their certificate programs from, let's say, Takshila, WILAC, and so on. Around a year ago, what we had done was we had engaged with a group of 20 people in 2 or 3 rounds, understanding what is the gap between what they get trained in policy and what is the real world of policy. And that was engagement number 1. Engagement number 2 happened in the form of curriculum. When we built our own curriculum, how do we see if it actually meets the market demand? And for that, we built out to a lot of experts who also became faculty. Some of them also became faculty later on. And this was the second group. The third group was people who actually contributed to the current round of curriculum. People like Amraja ji, Karanveer ji, who with their feedback and their openness to offer a feedback has created to a much more nuanced and improved version of the program, which we're offering as a cohort 2 of the program. Overall, as the program is a 4-month hybrid hands-on format. IIT Delhi, our Public Systems Lab, is a partner of that. Pehle India Foundation is another partner which specializes in trade policy. They work with state ministries to improve their trade and their global exports, creating export policy, also GDP development plans. And number 3, we also have Pranava Institute as a partner, which is a global think tank on tech policy, working with the likes of the Australian government or the European Union, enabling India's tech policy ecosystem to open up for global partnerships. This current cohort, which is being offered from mid-May to mid-September, will be offered in trade, tech, and governance. It is built for working professionals, and currently the faculty come from around 7 countries, and there are bureaucrats with which you do a live project, a hands-on project with them. I already see questions coming in from Keshav and Javed, and I will like to respond to both of them in just a few minutes, Keshav and Javed. Next slide, please. This is the idea of Policy Pioneers. As the name suggests, it is imagined to build pioneers in policy, primarily in these 3 domains for the upcoming cohort. We have a cohort on trade, we have a cohort on technology, and we have a cohort on governance. These 3 tracks, understanding the curriculum in the form that there is some things which are common to all. So there is a core of policy which is available to all, which is accessible to all, which is compulsory for all. There are some workshops around policy that we do for everybody. There are some common sessions beyond workshops and core, which are also common. Some things like systems thinking, or some things like lateral thinking, which is also common for all. There is a focus on careers, and there are sessions dedicated on helping you build your career. And then there are domain specializations, some things about a domain and some things about the workshops in a domain. Amongst the common curriculum, we try to take you through basics of how do policy and politics intersect. How do you read a policy document? How do you analyze a policy document? How do you do stakeholder mapping? How do you communicate in policy? How do you incorporate behavioral insights? And how do you do data analytics and research in any domain? These are common curriculum. Then there are domain specific curriculum, and the domain specific curriculum vary across the 3 tracks. In trade, we talk about how rules and licenses and compliances play out in practice. Each industry right now is looking for somebody who can help them navigate the compliances. Compliances have become heavy, and in a more globalized world, with trade going across countries with different trade agreements in place, understanding what are the compliances of each country becomes very important. There is also discussion around trade agreements, also discussion around India's own journey into trade policy, and also just a basic overview of institutions that currently govern trade. This is broadly about the curriculum on trade, and we do different facets of the same discussion. We move on to the tech policy curriculum, and the tech policy curriculum is something that takes hints from the previous one, because it also starts with data and how digital public infrastructure function, what are the standards of it, also created understanding how technology industries work, how tech policy works in practice, what are the institutions that govern this tech policy world, how India's own policy ecosystem has evolved, and core understanding of why does the government need to or may not need to intervene in governance and technology and the governance of technology. And then you have the third track, which is the public systems, which is almost also like a track which is common across all policy pioneers. This is the basics of policy. Something which works as a generalist in policy needs to understand the center-state relations, how urban and local systems function, how our legal frameworks function, how ideas translate to legislation, how public systems function, and how governance function. This is the track line in which we work in one particular domain and explore it in depth. These are the 3 parallel curriculums that will go on. There would be some things common and some things varied according to the 3 tracks as we have showcased in the slide. But this is not all. The whole program also sees a wide variety of faculty. Faculty whose faces you can see and whose organizations you can see on the right. People who have headed IIMs, people who have headed IITs, people who have taught in universities, global universities like Oxford and Yale, people who have been grassroots leaders and secretaries from the government of India, people who have created institutions, initiatives like Ayushman Bharat and India's digital mission, as well as people who are influencing it from the outside, who are heading think tanks and heading government institutions. We are engaging with a series of stakeholders from across domains. And I say this is absolute conviction that the kind of faculty that we engage with in Policy Pioneers is unparalleled. The kind of expertise that they carry, the kind of wisdom that they bring in with them is something that we really look forward to and bow down in their reverence. This is the idea of Policy Pioneers. Now, if you want to see anything in detail, this is also available in the brochure of the program, which is available on the website. Feel free to have a look. But broadly, the entire curriculum is only one part of the program. The curriculum gives us sessions. Some of these sessions happen in person. Some of these sessions happen digitally. Then there is also a parallel track in which you also work on a hands-on project, a real world project, not a vanity project, but something that a bureaucrat has shared as their need in their domain. Some of these bureaucrats give time up to, some bureaucrats in the previous cohort gave time up to 10, 15 calls over a period of 3 months. Some bureaucrats connected twice or thrice over a period of 3 months. But in all of these conversations, there is also an active engagement on what does the domain need? What is real world? Where this idea will fare in the real world or not? That clarification is offered in the hands-on format, and that's why these are called HOPs, hands-on projects. But this is not just it. The overall program requires a lot of mentorship by experts and bureaucrats. Here is a small list, from having a special chief secretary of a state to engaging with somebody who is heading a municipal commissionerate, from somebody who is a DM to somebody who created a national-wide mission called Bhumi. There is a range in which we operate via the HOPs. Can you go to the next slide? And fundamentally, there is also something that we all can take. If we are engaging in public policy, we must talk to a practitioner or a mentor. somebody who has done this work. LinkedIn is a great place to start. You may wish to engage them with your friends. You may wish to engage with some of us and have a call with one of us. And you may wish to engage with organizations in which there are practitioners and mentors. Or you can choose to explore one domain. Some of you might wish to explore one domain in the form of I want to understand what tech policy means and how tech policy functions. Some of us might wish to apply for Policy Pioneers program because it's a good program and you just talk to the faculty and the people who are engaged with us in the past. There are also areas in which we wish to understand how this may function, and we might or might not know it right now. We might wish just to understand that, is this actually worth it? And for that, there is nothing better than doing it live. While we do all of this, I'm just turning off my screen. Yes. While we do all of this, it's important to realize that not a single, if you do any one of them alone, we will not achieve what you wish to. What is mentioned here will only be achieved if we actually make the effort of doing all of them together. We must talk to a practitioner. We must explore one domain at least, and we must also see some form of capacity building for our own selves. And that is the idea of Policy Pioneers. Now, we will be closing the poll and taking questions from all of you on how we feel we should engage with the world and take in your questions. Shreyans is a question which is the easier question to begin with. Shreyans has asked Subhamji and Nachiketa, just curious to know where do both of you see yourself, generalist or specialist? I will respond for myself, passing it on to Nachiketa ji. I see myself as a specialist in one domain. And this is not a domain-based specialization. This is a horizontal-based specialization. My specialization lies in policy drafting. This is a specialization I also wish to double down on. How do we write to communicate policy better? This means how do we write a note for the government of India? How do we write a circular? How do we create act in accordance with the legal requirement of creating an act? My specialization lies not in terms of vertical domains, but in a horizontal domain, which is policy drafting. Apart from that, I am a through and through generalist. I am somebody who enjoys breadth. I'm somebody who enjoys seeing things from multiple dimensions, and also somebody who who believes that domain expertise requires a lot of core work for years, and that core work I wish to put in policy drafting, and that's where I wish to be a specialist in and be a generalist for the rest of it. Over to you, Nachiketa, for answering the part of the question by Shayansh.
Thank you, Shansi. Amazing question. I feel I'm a proud generalist. I struggled with this question for quite some time, but now given my own swabhava, I feel I'm someone who feel boxed when starts with some specialization. Though I try to do sometimes in my life, try to enter into some sort of specialization, but I realize that I feel boxed. So I want to remain as a generalist, want to create my own paths, want to remain very very adaptable, and at the same time I feel I have my specialist friends who can always come up to me and help me with their own specialization and domain specialization. So I'm in touch with a lot of my domain specialized friends, but myself I feel I'm a generalist.
Yes. To answer the second question, which is asked by M. Trivendranachi, what's the difference between mindset of politicians, civil servants, policymakers, and NGOs working towards building the country? Who make the biggest impact and who should choose what? So this is a very complex question, Trivendranachi. I'm not sure I would be able to do justice to the entire question, but I would answer a part of it. One funny way to look at it is what one of my mentors told me once. A politician is trained to say yes to all of your demands. Can this road be built? Yes, it will be built. Can this policy come in? Yes, this policy can come in. They are trained to say yes to every demand. A bureaucrat on that matter, a civil servant for that matter, is trained to say no to most of your demands. Can this road be built? No, it cannot be built because there are these issues. Can this policy come in? But if this policy comes in, there will be 10 issues, so no. They are trained to say no. Policymakers is a much bigger superset, which includes politicians, civil servants, and NGOs. NGOs, on the other hand, have a good amount of training in saying maybe to a lot of responses. Can this road be built? Maybe, if I get this and this. Can this family come out of poverty? Maybe, if this and this happens. This is broadly the difference, and this is also a quick joke in the policy world. But quite fundamentally, they are on different levels of change. What a politician can bring in is the political will, which becomes almost the sole bulldozing effect or sole bulldozing reason to get any policy to action. Remember, P.V. Narasimha Rao in a minority government could put in a lot of economic liberalization ideas, primarily because of the political will. It might have happened due to external pressure, but also heavily due to just the political will. Civil servants can bring in a lot of nuance to the sustainability of a policy. They understand systems the best. They understand what will sustain and what will not. A civil servant is very well suited to understand these nuances and bring in sustainability of change. NGOs, on the other hand, bring in a lot of community ownership of any change that happens. So if you are working in an NGO, if I'm working in an NGO, our core work should be how do we bring in sustainability? Does that answer your question, Devendraji? I know your question is big and massive, but I've tried to answer a part of it. Please feel free to ask a follow-up question. Somebody has asked, Keshav has asked, kindly explain the policy entrepreneurs part. And Keshav, this is the favorite part for me. I enjoy doing this because one day I would want us to be something which ensures that people are capable of being policy entrepreneurs. Policy entrepreneurs are those who create an enterprise which works with policy ecosystem and tries to make a dent with that. I will give you some examples, Keshav. For example, something like Samagra, which is a governance think tank or governance consulting organization, in which they work with government to deliver governance better, is a policy enterprise. There is an organization called Atlan, which works on data visualizations. Beautiful organization based out of India, which works on data visualization right now across countries also. A great policy enterprise. Even a think tank like, say, let's say India House is a policy enterprise. When you create an enterprise which Hak Darshak, for example, which ensures government schemes are more accessible, that is a policy enterprise. There are enterprises around policy. We just need to open our eyes and see around. And there are a lot of them. I hope I answered your question, Keshav. Please feel free to ask a follow-up question, Keshav, to this. Javed has asked, how can I adopt the learnings of PP for governance? Policy pioneers for governance. So Javed, let me give a quick example. This is from batch 1. And one of our colleagues was doing a specialization in governance. And she is a lawyer by profession. And she met after the course was over. And we had a very healthy, hearty conversation around her own experiences of policy pioneers. And she mentioned something nice. She mentioned that for the last 3 years, she has been talking about moving to policy space. The entire governance track helped her see that governance is not one domain and policy is not one domain. Policy is an interplay of multiple domains. And the next few months, she wants to understand these domains better. And she's a voracious reader. She reads a lot. So she mentioned she asked for a set of books to be recommended to her, and she offered a set of books that she has already bought in order to build this understanding. That's from a personal understanding perspective. Let me give another example. One of my friends, one of my former colleagues, and somebody who also joined in one of my programs long back in 2017, has also been a hands-on project mentor for the previous batch. He is right now the ADM of Ujjain. And what he said was something nice. He said, when I went through the program, I learned, one, the complexity of the system. And number two, I also understand that there are places to intervene. Those places to intervene made my journey easier when I joined the services. The learnings of policy pioneers can only be applied in governance, Javed, in 3 ways. One, you would know what are the levers of change inside the system. Section officer को पकड़े या IAS को पकड़े, BDO के साथ engage करें या DM के साथ engage करें. ये समझ बनना is part of the understanding of PP for governance. Number 2, आपके पास tools का होना, having the tools required to bring in a change, being able to write an opinion piece, being able to analyze a data set is something that you should build in this process. Number 3, the capability to know that which ideas have already taken place and why or why not have they succeeded or failed is an important part of understanding governance. Abhi, if I want to create a new policy for, let's say, healthcare, I need to know what all has happened in healthcare before. And that kind of learning can only happen if you have understanding of what has happened in the past. That's how, Javed, you can possibly engage with. I hope I answered your question, Javed. Feel free to ask a follow-up question. And there are 7 new responses. Okay. Javed has answer the last question. Trivendraji's last question, who should choose what? Okay. So if your temperament allows you to be a politician, and if you feel you are going to be a damn good politician, go and strive hard to be a politician in your journey, Trivendraji. Politics is a tough choice. If you have the required perseverance to sustain that tough choice for, let's say, a decade or two, because it will take a decade or two to be in politics, definitely attempt for politics. It is the toughest of domains and it is the most rewarding of domains if you succeed. If not, civil services is a good way to maintain career stability and do good. If you believe you want that, definitely try for that. The third step is people who are working in NGOs. It's an easier field to get into, much more harder to create an impact. A lot of good organizations actually made a good impact. If you really care about having an impactful life every single day, starting tomorrow or today, NGOs allow for that. You can feel your works impacting lives from day one. However, Trivendaji, for a detailed response to this, I would suggest have a look at our previous webinar on the same YouTube link that we shared with you. This talks about careers in public policy, in which we explain this in detail. I hope this time we answer your question, Trivendaji. Somebody has asked, Keshav has thanked for our response. A lot of people have thanked. Okay, Amrajaji's point. I go with the feeling with generalist, and I think this has also come to me after 8 long global consulting work, where I work from literally genetic sequence to skincare, and medtech devices, from clinical trials to even satellite company acquisition to market entry strategy, scientific claims, brand marketing campaigns on hero ingredients. Amrajaji, after all of this, after spending long years in global consulting work in a domain which requires specialization, your emotion of being a generalist is very well understood. I empathize with your emotion right now. Ashish has a question, and I might have missed it. Ashish's question is here. Okay. Ashish has asked, I'm not able to understand myself where I stand, but let me share a few points. On 8th Pay Commission, I wrote to PM on Jan 25. I suggested to bring in GST rates, reduce GST in automobile sector, invest heavily in R&D. I saw 4 of total 5 points done by the government. So I think I have a very good understanding of our economics and systems at large. Either you have a very good understanding, Ashish, which I have no doubt about, you would have very good understanding in order to suggest this. And you also have the required courage and the hard work required to actually write your ideas through. It is extremely rare, Ashish, when ideas move from dinner table conversations to actually policy action. Just the fact that you wrote something to the Prime Minister office showcases courage and commitment. Kudos to you, Ashish, for doing that. Ashish, I could not see your question here, so please feel free to ask your question again. Pratha has a question. If I'm reading it right, Pratha Bhatt, yes. Given that India's policy ecosystem is still largely generalist-led, but the problems we are dealing with are increasingly technical, how do you think about building professionals who can translate deep expertise and policy action? And where do you see early career professionals fitting into that pipeline? Excellent question, Pratha. Let me give you a quick response to this. Last month, we hosted a small roundtable, around 55 people. All of them come from a particular domain, which is called allied healthcare. We had, for example, the promoter family of Mahajan Imaging. We had the founders of Healthians. We had somebody who was heading GD Goenka Hospital. We had somebody who was a head of department in AIMS. We had a principal secretary, an additional secretary of 2 different states. We had 5 members who represent regulatory commissions in different states and central government. We also had around 20 academicians who run allied healthcare programs. We also had AHP practitioners. We also had grassroots activists. And we also had people who engage with the policy in the form of industry bodies, CII, SHM, FICCI, and the likes. All of these engage with policy. The CII policy person has spent last 20 years engaging with healthcare policy alone, and she is a specialist in health policy. The lady whom we met in the ministry, and again, we are going to meet them tomorrow, is currently a very senior bureaucrat in Ministry of Health. And she asked us questions because of the specialization we could bring into the entire conversation. Because there is a specialization in this. There are people who engage with, let's say, within allied health, somebody who comes with a deep expertise of allied healthcare training is engaged in a conversation because of the specialization they bring in. So early career professions definitely fit in. If you look at Pratha, the last 10 think tanks, the latest think tanks which India has created, India House will be one of them, probably there will be some more by convergence and so on. You will see they are operating in a particular domain. There is somebody who has funded a think tank in tourism policy, which is a very, very specific domain of policy. Specialization in policy has increased a lot, Pratha, especially in the two domains we are also offering in Policy Pioneers this time. Tech policy and trade policy are extremely specialist driven domains. IIFT professors played a major role in India's trade negotiations. Pehle India Foundation has written export policy for 3 different states, which often be a partner. Pranava Institute is a specialist-led think tank. So there are specialist-led domains, Pratha. We just have to, I think, a little more exploration will lead you there. I hope I answered your question, Pratha.
Just to add on to this, at times when we look at it from outside perspective, we generally get to see the faces of generalists who get the deals closed. And then there are a lot of specialists who have played a role at the back of it. So sometimes it could be our bias also, while I agree that we have less of the specialists, but it could be our bias also at times because specialists don't come in front always. So, yes.
Yes. Completely aligned with what Nachiketa ji mentioned. Specialists are great at also enabling the final conversation. Imagine if India is negotiating on a trade policy with US, we would need somebody who is an expertise in export policy. In fact, you look at the chief negotiator, he himself is a specialist in this domain. You look at the career trajectory of the bureaucrat who is negotiating these deals with US. The person is an expert and a specialist in this domain. He comes from a bureaucrat background, and that makes him a generalist. But yes, the person has spent almost 15 years out of his career in only one department, and that builds an expertise. Somebody has asked, I want to understand where do I stand, generalist or specialist. I keep doing very deep research on topics that touches me across different domains. So if you do deep top research on topics, let's say 10 different topics in a year, probably you are a generalist who enjoys going deep in a topic. If you do deep research on the same topic with 10 different types of questions across the year, Ashish, you are probably a specialist. It depends how often do we switch the domain. This entire model looks like a T. If you see a T in my hand in the screen, imagine this as a layer of generalist. We go skin deep in a lot of areas, we are generalists. And then in the center, there's a longer arc, just like a T has. This longer arc is the depth part of it. When you go skin deep and then you go much, much, much deeper in order to build your expertise in that. So for example, somebody who researches about semiconductor policy will not be limited only by fab policy or will not be only limited by PLA. We'll also look at what does semiconductor mission mean in each of the countries in the world. What are the research papers around it? What are the criticisms of it? And we'll do that not over a period of few months, but for a period of few years. And that's what defines domain specialization. I hope we answered your question, Ashish. And right now we are almost at 5 and we have also answered almost all questions over here. And the questions that have also come in on our YouTube channel. If there are any more questions, we'd be glad to answer. Else, we would just put in a link to the Policy Pioneers website on the chat for all of us to see. My email ID is kumar@theindiahouse.org. And Nachiketa ji, your email ID is?
Nachiketa@theindiahouse.org.
We look forward to connecting with you all again. And it's a pleasure connecting with all of you and seeing so many of you engaging in conversations, asking questions, asking follow-up questions to understand your place in this world better. After all, what we all are striving for is creating an impact from our own positions of reference and hoping to matter in this world. Ensuring that our net contribution to this world is as a giver and not as a taker. And with that thought, I hope to see some of you in Policy Pioneers programs, or anyways, just pay a visit to us at our office. Our office location is also put in the chat box. We are based out of New Delhi right now. It is C79 Shivalik, Malviya Nagar, New Delhi. Very close to Hojkas Metro and very close to wherever your heart is. Look forward to seeing you either in person in office, or have a conversation with you over a cup of coffee, or see you in Policy Pioneers program. That's all for today. Thank you and namaste.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.